I don't know.
Okay, tip them up and rattle through.
See, there was more pictures in this. He took this one time, and I'd hung on to it for so dang many years. Well, that's Mother's brother Patrick. And isn't that Mother? Yeah.
I thought that was your father. I thought that was Grandpa Feehan.
No. That's Patrick.
Oh,
That's Patrick Tierney.
okay.
That's Mother's
Tip
brother.
them up so I can see them straight up and down. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Well, and that's Mother and Sister Vincent, who was a cousin of Mother's.
All right, and that's Grandma Tierney.
And that's Grandma Tierney.
She never visited the States or anything?
No, she probably never left Liz Moore. And that's Brother James and I.
You guys had a lot to do with the church.
Well,
Everything.
the reason we did, we were right behind it. Every time Father Connor would be short an altar boy, he'd holler and scream for us to come up there. Well, and that's, I got to look at this one.
Bank.
Yeah, I know it. Well, that's, one of them is Zabel's, but the second from the left is Frank McGill. And he went on to be a Paulist missionary. Father Frank McGill.
Back in those days, Plainview was a little bigger than it is now. Or I mean, at least it was compared to other towns, right?
No.
It always was a real small town.
No. I remember for years it was 1,500. Now all of a sudden they've jumped to 2,000, I think. No, it was always. That is
It's like Ireland.
Roman Catholic Cathedral, Waterford.
Is that the one that?
That's Mother's home.
Did our grandpa build that? What church did our great grandpa build?
Well, if they had a hand in any, it would have been this one then.
Okay.
If they had a hand in one, it would have been that one.
In Waterford.
Yep.
That's on the coast? Is that on the
In Lismore.
Oh, in Lismore.
In Lismore. Isn't that what it says? Oh, wait. No, this is in Waterford. This is in Waterford, not Lismore.
Okay.
Waterford in County Waterford. The Irish get a little confused with their... Well, and there is...
You can hold them right up there, John.
Okay, well there's the three there. Henry Hart, Margaret Hart, and Frank McGill, who went on to be the priest. Margaret was Frank's aunt, and Frank's mother died when he was young, out in Seattle, Washington someplace. He came to Plainview when he was about 11 or 12 years old, and Hart's raised him. And she was Mother's best friend. And this is Dad and Mother and Sister Vincent. And Dad and Mother, Mother and Dad, later years.
It's about the only picture I've seen. Old pictures.
And Brother James. Now this picture here, they tell me, is Mother and myself. This is, I can't think of her name. She's Henry Hart's cousin, I believe. This other old lady, I can't tell you. And of course, that's, like I say, Brother Jim. What else we got here? Well, like it says in the picture, the Rood family. They live next door. There are we over at Schultz's. Is myself and is it Florine, Rood, and Jim? I think so. Here's the one I'm looking for, the Carpenters. I thought I had that. With the Carpenter kids. Myself and Rover, Paul, Brother Jim, Judy Carpenter, Nora Carpenter. That must be Osmer and Margaret.
All right.
And that's the rude kids here. And there is another one of Grandma Tierney, myself, and I think this is it says to May and Jack with love, Michael. The 19th of April, 44, my brother. Michael, my brother. I gotta check that one out.
All right.
I gotta check to see if that means Ann Tierney's brother or Grandma Feehan's brother. There's the lady in New York. Catherine Murray. That her mother and dad were Grandma Feehan's good friends. They came from Lismore. Mm-hmm. Well, and here's the tribe here. There's Margaret Hart, mother, dad, myself. Who was the old lady who lived down the end of the street? Mrs. Kinsella, I think. And Blanche Rood. Well, there's the Murrays. There's Bob and Kathleen and Emily Murray. Her and mother. Now where Carthage is, the husband, I don't know. Another one with Father McGill. There's brother Jim. Look at the sailor. There's two of Jim. I don't know who the other guy is in this one. It doesn't say either.
Wasn't there a story about a letter you got from Jim? Maybe not.
From Jim? I don't think I ever got a letter from Jim. I'll tell you one thing though, and I was talking to a guy that's so gol dang funny. We were up in Duluth last summer, and there was a big freighter leaving. Of course, these big ones now, they're over 1,000 feet long, and this guy was there, and there was only a half a dozen there. It was raining that night. And he said something to me. He says, the only people who are down here now, he says, they're either crazy, he says, they're real die-hard ship watchers or something, And he had a son was first mate or something on that boat was going out, and the son was way up in the pilot house, waving to him. And so we ducked back out of the rain and we got talking. And this guy had shipped on the Great Lakes for like 40 years or something. And I says, I had a brother shipped 1 year on the lakes and during the war when they couldn't get help, the guys were gone. And I said, in fact, I remember him sending home a trade paper. They'd left Duluth on the William G. Mather with the largest load of grain ever to leave Duluth at that time, heading for Buffalo, New York. And this guy said, I was a mate on the Mather some years later.
Wow.
So there's St. Joachim's in Plainview.
Is that the church?
That's the church.
And that's not your house, though.
No, that's the priest's house. Well, now listen. You can see our house. You can see our house right back here.
Okay.
That's where it is.
Pretty close.
And this is Frank McGill, and I don't know who the girl is. It has to be a cousin of his, but I can't tell you who it is. Well, Father Nidecker. He came to Plainview about in 1942 or 3. And this Father McGill now that went to be the Paulist, right at this time, he was still working the bank in Plainview, and he was taking his theology at St. Mary's at night before he went to seminary. So he was teaching us the Latin, and Father Nidecker was an assistant there with Father O'Connor, and he was teaching us all to be altar boys. Jim and myself and Marshall Cook and Jim Carter and Eden Carpenter and Paul Carpenter and there was a dozen of us. Well, then here's Father Lavery. That's who Mother worked for in Plainview. Who the rest of the tribe is there, I don't know. It has to be some nieces and grandnieces or something of Father Lavery's. This Father Nidecker, shall I put a funny story in about him?
Let's finish this one.
Huh?
Let's
All
finish
right.
this photo.
Well, there's yours truly sitting on the fish pond over at Schultz's. There's Jim on, let's see, what was he on? The St. Paul. See, they had a couple, there's one of the planes, they had a carrier launch plane. That's when the communists were just starting to get, yeah, it was the St. Paul he was on. They had one of their planes shot down. This was supposed to be in peacetime, 46, 47. They had one of their planes shot down off the coast of China. That's when the communists were just starting to get started over there. Well, there you know as much about that as I do. Brother Cregan, a friend of Mother's. And that's all I can tell you. And look at it, it's what is it, a Model T? That has to be a long time ago. Wherever that was. Well, by gal, they didn't mark that one, and I can't tell you who it is. Oh, there's who the other one was. Charlotte Erding, unless she took that one. There's Mother and Sister Vincent. Oh, and Dad is in there, in the shadows. That's it. That's the end of that one. Was I holding that so you could get it?
I got it okay, yeah.
Well, there's Mother.
And Sister Vincent.
Mother and Sister Vincent. Sister Vincent, for years, was in up here in St. Paul. Was it the Good Counsel House or something like that? You know when I'm saying this too now, I've got to go looking. There's some other cousins in St. Paul. Their name was Powers. There was Hannah Powers. There was two old maids and a bachelor brother. The three of them lived together. But there was Hannah. I can't think of the other two. and then there was a Bridget Foley. I'm sure it's Foley. I can look that up in the police records too. Her husband was a lieutenant or something on the St. Paul police force, about in the early 40s. Because we used to go visit both these. They were cousins of Mother's some way. And sometime I'm going to find out where these Powers live, because it shouldn't be too hard to do. Because I remember we'd take the streetcar and we could get within a block or two of where they actually lived. And then then we walked down the house, and the house was a great big old mansion inside, big open staircases and stuff. Maybe they're all like that. But down the street from the house, just a couple houses, maybe it was the last house. Maybe they were in the last house. But you were at the end of the street on a big high cliff with a big fence there, and down below you was the great big railroad yard. Now, sometime in St. Paul, I don't know if it's over in this area.
Oh, it was in St. Paul and you don't know where, you're saying?
Yeah, in St. Paul.
Oh.
And since the years I've been coming up here, I'm just kind of wondering if it's someplace, or they're like the new high bridge and stuff they put in there. See, because you go to the end of them dead end streets, and the railroad yard is down in there.
You bet, down the cliff.
Yeah, so I just don't know. I'll have to look up some. There's so dang much of that stuff that, and some people kept records and kept track of things, and then some people, like this Father McGill, my gosh, he and Father Lavery, before they took trips to Ireland and stuff like that, before he ever studied to be a priest. And he went out to California. He went out to Yellowstone, and he had pictures. He had enough pictures to fill this room up, you know, of you. Where they all went. See, and there's a whole bunch in St. Paul, McAndrews, who were Henry Hart's sister was married to McAndrews. And of course, that's how we got friends with them, because they all come down and visit Hart's in Plainview.
So you took care of Mom after Dad died, your mom? Or you stayed
Yeah,
with her
yeah.
until she died, or?
Well, yeah, until about 3 months or 4 months before she actually died, we put her in a nursing home there, because it was getting so, she had to be under care, you know, and in fact, Rosemary and I were just talking about that this morning, that we knew she was dying.
How old was she?
Well, what to say? She was born in 86. She died in 1950, 64.
Was there any resentment? I mean, my dad wasn't around.
Yeah, he was then.
At Plainview?
Yeah, that summer. He worked in the creamery.
He was home from the Navy?
Yeah, no, he was home from school.
So he'd already been in the Navy, he'd been to school. I was thinking he was much younger, but that was when your dad died then. He was 17.
Yeah,
And you were 18. And so how old were you when your mom died?
well,
Well, let's see.
yeah, I got to stop and think. 1950,
Okay, I was thinking you were 18 still, so it must have been a few years after your dad.
yeah, in 46, 4, I must have been 22
Okay.
when Mother died, because she died the 14th of August.
So you, it seems like,
My
paid
mother
more
died.
attention to that family duty kind of stuff, it seemed like, as far as staying home and making
Yeah,
sure Mom was
well-
okay, and, as opposed to Dad.
Yeah, and you know, you get a job, and you get a car, and you know, you get tied down to things, and so. And then I don't remember what he did.
When he says we knew, the Mayo Clinic, have you heard that story? Sent them a letter, but not our grandmother. So that they knew she was dying, but she didn't.
Yeah, when they, you know, they discovered that she'd had surgery for cancer on her hand. And it was only a few months after the surgery she started having these terrible back pains. And she went back over there. And they told her it was sciatic rheumatism, which is something in the back evidently, and is very painful. But right away then the doctor sent me a letter and told me what it was. And he said she's got a year to live, and he hit it dang near to the day, you know.
What was the logic in not telling her? Is this the way they did it?
Well, that's just what Rosemary and I were talking about. This good friend of hers, Margaret Hart, was living right next door at the time. Well, she always lived next door, right up the street. About a month or so before Mother died, Margaret told her. And then she was so much more relaxed and, you know, accepting it, and everything was. Well, Rosemary and I got talking this morning about this tape, this Life After Life, you know, and it's just, I don't know, they just did that. This Lola Cook that we were discussing.
So, what did they leave when they passed on, your mom and dad? Was there anything that they left you guys, you boys? The house?
Just the house, you know. And Cripe sakes, yes, we sold that, and what did we get out of that? $3,000 or something, you know, and didn't mount to.
Neither of you were living there? Or you didn't want to?
You know, I was still living there until I got the job in Rochester at Marigold, and then I had moved to Rochester in, I don't remember when, January or something like that. then we sold the house the next spring.
Mm.
So it was empty that one winter there.
So did my dad come back to Plainview then much after that, or, I mean, after the folks were gone?
Oh yeah,
Just to visit friends?
sure. Then I can't just remember, when did they get married then? They got married shortly after that, your mother and dad.
Kathy was born in 52 or 3.
Num. Let me think. Yeah, could be. I'm trying to think. I started going with your mother in 53, I thought.
She graduated in 52.
High school?
Mm-hmm.
And
Classroom.
and we were up to Jim's one time. Marge may not even been with me that time. She may not have been with me that time, because Kathy was god dang little. Kathy wasn't walking yet, I don't think. They lived in some apartment up in North Minneapolis, and well, it was tenements is what it was, kind of. I got to ask your mother about that.
Isn't that where they met the Woolies then, right away there? I think that's where they met. It was right during that time.
Yeah, I thought they met no. They had moved out on Humboldt Avenue, a few blocks south of Basilica, into an apartment building, and Jean was the caretaker there. But this one over north in North Minneapolis, I got to ask your mother where that was. It seemed to me that's where. Did you ever meet the Corbett boys? Jim Corbett and we're getting off the track here, but he had a brother. Seemed to me he had a sister too, because I'm going to ask your mother again when we get out of here. This Dick Trickle that's still running stock cars. He was in the Daytona, first car out of the Daytona the last week. Something went wrong. But this Trickle, we used to go to the state fairgrounds to watch him. I'm sure it was him to watch him race, because he was going with this sister, Jim Corbett's, I think. But there's two of those Corbett boys, and I can't think of the cripe sakes. I remember we'd be up here and we'd go downtown drinking, you know. A neighbor kid that grew up with us, Dale Miller, used to play in a place downtown Minneapolis out in Olson Highway called the Silver Bridle. But that was for all purposes black even then. But you didn't, we didn't feel we were in any degree of trouble. We used to go in and out of bars without any, I guess you might not do it today, or maybe there isn't even any black section out there.
St. Paul?
Olson Memorial.
No, Olson Highway out Minneapolis, that's all, it's all ripped out of there, ain't it?
No,
It's all black.
Okay. Well, that's where we used to go.
60s renewal. So, did you and Dad, you guys, once your folks died, was there much family stuff going on? I mean, like the aunts and uncles were still around and stuff.
Sure.
So did you guys get together that much, or very rarely?
Not very much, not very much.
'Cause you guys weren't the best of buds.
No, but we we got better. He used to come down there though, and then he'd come down on a weekend, and we'd go cruise around a little. Your mother and Dad would come down, and but we got better though. We got better because I can remember going to oh cripes. We must have, because I can remember going to the Sullivans for Christmas or something when your grandmother was what was her first name?
Marie?
No?
Helen.
Helen, yes. Grandma Helen. When she was still alive, I'd be up here for holidays or something, and then they lived out in Bryn Mawr one time. Then they lived out here on Humboldt. And then where'd they go from there? Did he go from there to Glencoe?
How about you? Did you bought one house in Rochester and move around much, or you got the job in Maryville? How'd you find out about that? Just applied.
Well, yeah, and I knew they were looking for a buttermaker, and I was a buttermaker. And I just wanted to get out of Plainview anyway. That was dead end street there. No, Margie and I, when we got married, let's see, we had two apartments from 55 to 60. Then we bought that house out on, that you got the painting of there, out on 20th. And then
So that was your first house then? You stayed there a while.
yeah, well, and then we built a new one there, you know. Were you in the, you been in that new one, huh?
Sure. Of course he was. The house built right next to the other one, and then we tore the old one down.
Yeah,
Same spot.
same spot, same 2 acres, right. Cripes, you ought to go up and see that now, the whole,
Yeah, we did.
Did ya?
Came up there, yeah.
the whole thing is built up.
Yeah, you can't tell. It's hard to tell. But you
I know it. And then we built that new one in 73 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then we stayed there till, well, I stayed there till 78, and Margie stayed there till,
80.
yeah, like August or something of 80. And then she sold it.
probably got more than you cost to build it.
Oh. Yeah, you know, though, of course, I didn't do any objection on that either. That was her job. She could stay there as long as she wanted, but she wanted to get out too, and she could have got a lot more if she'd have stuck around a few years, because, geez, that whole thing, see, it had just went into the city then.
They needed that piece of land for their whole plan. So
Well, they got a piece of land from us on the end.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
See, we got, what was it, 30 or 35,000 bucks for half an acre on the east end of that, where they run the street up through there. But I mean, the house itself, where she was, I forget what she sold that for, 60 or 70,000, something like that. And she could have got, you know, a few years later, she could have got a lot more. But she was, you know how she was all upset over John dying, and I think she was just sick of the whining women at the clinic. She was supervisor there at the clinic, you know, one of the labs, and I think she was sick of that, and she wanted to go.
Yeah, I was wondering about that in retrospect, if it had more to do with John than not.
I don't know either, but see, her and Marcy went out first, you know. They took a drive out and saw that there was a job out there. And then her and Peg loaded up and went. And that took a little doing too, just to pick up and go.
Took a little doing to get left behind.
Yes, it did. But, yes, I guess you're right.
Should we take a break? Okay.